What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode of the Extraordinary Man Podcast. You guys know who I am by now. My name is Phil Jones, Mike Jones. Have you guys know me personally and professionally? And I am the host of the Extraordinary Man Podcast. And you guys know who this extremely hardworking, insatiable, red shirt wearing, green and black, extraordinary man hat having individual is that's right now leaving from a job and that's heading out, but wants to make sure that he showed his face to show y'all how dedicated he is to what it is that we do. Yo, son, state your name, man.
Man, I am Mr. Hardworking. Midas. Make sure you put a king in front of that. Let's go.
I also want to give a special shout out to Apple Maps for extending his trip.
Oh my God, bro.
When you the contractor life, when you gotta be places that you ain't familiar with, and you gotta rely on places like Apple to get you where you need to go. It's not fun. Apple is
And
superior
and,
technology in everything except maps.
and it's like, and I got this phone, what I'm saying, trying to give it a go, trying to, understand. And it's not so good, my friend. It's not so good.
Ain't no so good, my friend.
No.
Ain't no so good. The map's not so good, but everything else is so good. Anyway,
The
let's get
the
right.
sound quality is crazy on this thing. I will admit what? I will admit that.
Of
Yes.
course it is.
But
Jose, good morning, good morning, good morning.
what's going on, Mr. Jose?
Well, it's not morning, but you guys know what I mean by that. So anyway,
Well, you work overnight, so it's always morning to you.
it's a beautiful morning. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Today's topic is, and I want to be very clear that the subject matter I did a video on not too long ago, but I really do think that it's something that needs to be discussed quite often. And I'm gonna go ahead and take off. I'm gonna show my headline for this one. The concept of suffering in silence. I don't think people really understand what that means for us. And I'm gonna go ahead and deliberate a little bit on it. And Midas, I want you to just go ahead and chime in wherever you see fit, brother. Men suffering in silence. There are things that people don't know about us. There's a lot of things that people don't know about us, and I think that there are things that women don't want to know about us. Our vulnerability. A lot of times, our vulnerability and the reason why we're not open to women all the time is because of the fact that we are constantly dealing with wondering whether or not a woman that we care about is going to make an attempt to demonize us and or to weaponize our vulnerabilities. What do we mean by weaponizing our vulnerabilities? What we mean by that is we found in many situations that in hard times, in stressful situations, the same women that we would lay over and bend over backwards for will be the same women who will turn around in a heated argument and bring something delicate up and use it against us in a way that they know that is going to hurt. And then in turn, after all is said and done, will manipulate the situation to make us feel that we need to apologize to them because they would have never done it had we not hurt their feelings.
Trash.
I have had experiences with people who I truly cared about, that I thought the world of, that I thought to myself, like, hey, I really think that this person has my best interest at heart. And in turn, this same person when, and again, this isn't just a woman thing. This is just a general loyalty thing that I've experienced in my lifetime. That when relationships go sour or break bad, that people will oftentimes turn around and use sensitive information as a means of attempting to destroy us. Whether
Yeah.
they put it out in social media, whether they put it out amongst mixed company, whatever the circumstances are, it's like it just seems to be a circumstance to where there is no limit to what somebody is willing to do in order to attempt to destroy you because their feelings are hurt.
I think a lot of time that has to deal with a lot of, you know what I'm saying, immaturity. Uh, Growing up without the understanding of being taught and told, you need to, maneuver like this and handle situations like this. And so lashing out and utilizing said information is a coping mechanism to try to ease the pain of how they feel about that person in that said situation at that moment. A lot of times, I get it, you know what I'm saying? Things are said that isn't meant. It's just a heated moment, but it's said, you know. And that's something that, as humans, we need to work on it and learn to, develop a sense of understanding uh, when we need to utilize said information or not. Some things you just need to take with you to the grave, regardless of how heated the situation is. And again, these are things that you learn over time as you get older. These are things that you learn over time when you start to really cultivate, close relationships and close friendships. So it's just something as humans that we got to work on.
And I absolutely agree with that. I agree. And one of the things that I absolutely agree with more so than anything is the fact that people have to be able to check their emotions at the
Mhm.
door. You have to understand that when a person is trusting you, they are trusting you. That trust is not to be taken for granted under any circumstances. And regardless of what the situation is, let the relationship die amicably if that's the case. Just let it die. It's okay.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, we get into places to where we are feeling a way about individuals at a certain point in time in life, that we feel that it is okay to take the intimate secrets and expose them and express them out to the universe. That's never okay. That's never okay. I'm not a fan of it. I have been guilty of it in my past life, absolutely. Brittany, good evening. I definitely been guilty of it in my past
Um,
life. I have no regrets about it. But the one reason why I mention it is because I remember how it made people feel that I cared about. I remember that in the heat of the moment, I felt compelled to tell my truth, so to speak. And in the midst of telling my truth, what did it get me? Ultimately, nothing. Only thing that it did was it just made somebody trust me less. It made somebody look at me much different than how I wanted to be seen. It made me look weak, made me look like a weirdo. It made me appear like a man who could not control his emotions. There's somebody who just could not stay solid. And this happens all the time. Whether people realize it or not, it happens all the time. But we don't always know.
And it's like it follows that same philosophy. I believe it's like it takes a lifetime uh, to build a reputation, and then like 5 seconds to lose it or something like that, or for everything to go bad. It's almost the same thing. Like it only takes that one comment, that one post, that one whatever, and all trust, the whole entire relationship, like everything, the whole dynamic shifts. The way my energy towards you when you enter the room is gonna change. I'm gonna be reluctant to tell you things now, or I'm gonna tell you things, but I'm gonna give you so much, and I'm gonna omit the rest. You know, it just damages the whole dynamic of the relationship.
I mean, even when a relationship is over and we can all agree that the relationship is over, I still believe in my heart of heart that there's some things that you just need to just let it die with the relationship. It's okay to let it die with the relationship. There's nothing else coming out of it. Then let it die. There's no need for me to air out a person's dirty laundry because I'm upset with them.
Yep.
And it's just like I don't even
Yep.
think that it's a maturity sake. I think, with all honesty, it's really one of those things to where it's just the difference between being stand up and being an asshole. Excuse my French, but I just think that it really boils down that deep. It's that simple. Is the fact that just shut up, shut your mouth. You don't have to. You don't.
And I would love it. I would love it to be that simple, sir. Sorry to cut you off.
Right.
I would love it to be that simple, sir.
Oh, absolutely.
I really would. I would love for everybody to be able to handle that situation just like that. But unfortunately, you got a-holes out here that think that doing it that way actually is the right way. That's what you're, because that's the environment that they grew up in. And then they have other individuals. They got other, chatty Cathys behind them, pumping them up, charging up their battery, and got them thinking that that's the right thing to do. That's right.
And then that's another thing too. But before I go into that sector of that part, what I do want to do is I want to emphasize something. It's like I put out a video not too long ago, actually a couple of days ago, and in putting out that video, it was in response to somebody who I went to school with that was expressing himself, and as he expressed himself, he expressing the hurt that he feels, the things that he's going through, and first and foremost, I thought it was extremely brave of him to do that. Primarily because of the fact that there's so many men out here that feel so squeamish about allowing themselves to not look. First and foremost, is like he had to excuse himself before he did it by saying like, "Hey, I don't want to not sound masculine or sound weak." Like the fact that he had to start the conversation off immediately by trying to excuse what could be perceived as his weakness before he expressed himself, that's part of the stigma that I think that we need to address, and that we need to start normalizing the fact that there's a difference. There's a vast difference between somebody who is complaining and somebody who is trying to find himself. No, a man that is not whiny, but he needs to get something off his chest to allow him to move on. What people don't know about us is we're not all the alpha dog. You don't just get to jump from whatever position that you are the alpha dog. It takes time for you to develop yourself into a certain personality, into certain character traits. There are people who are the boss that are not respected as the boss because they are weak men. There are some people who work themselves up the food chain because they have felt powerless their entire lives, and they hide themselves behind the position. And they use the position to belittle. They use the position to get back at women because of how they were treated when they were younger. They use the position to be manipulative and conniving. Some men are not men in the eyes of men, and their position power does not automatically, their money doesn't automatically qualify them as men in the eyes of men. Their status doesn't automatically qualify them as men in the eyes of men. A lot of times, some people are useful, but we still see them as cowards. They're still not respectful or respected as men. Let's get that out the way. But there are reasons why some men use certain tactics to try to make themselves into certain things in life because they did not feel that they were important. They didn't get an opportunity. They maybe ridiculed. Like I remember we did something similar to this with the Michael B. Jordan story when he was on the red carpet and the girl. There are more of those stories. There are more men who have that story than there are the guys that have just been triumphant and excellent their entire lives and well liked and super popular and good at everything that they do. Like there are far few Dos Equis men than there are the guy that was just looked over. Excuse me a second. Go ahead and continue, Midas.
I think that, and you brought up a good point when you said that your homie, you started off, having to apologize, saying, for sounding like he coming off a certain way or trying not to come on sound like a certain way. I think what needs to happen is we really need to get into making men's feelings normal. Like just because we're men don't mean that we don't feel. We're not tools. We're not cyborgs. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us, yeah, we workaholics, but you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I should be able, or any man rather, any extraordinary man rather, should be able to express himself without feeling like that there's going to be some ridicule, without feeling like that there's going to be some backlash for what he's saying, without feeling like, what I'm saying, what we grew up with, what I'm saying, man up, poke your chest out, suck it up. Every situation doesn't call for a suck up. You know what I'm saying? I may just want to just hash it out, spit this off my chest real quick. Let me get this off. Let me get my mind right. Let me decompress. Now I can go back out there and conquer the world again. A lot of men live in this state of feeling like Atlas. If you don't know who Atlas is the gentleman, is the big statue, the guy that's holding up the globe. And that's his punishment. He has to hold up that globe. He cannot drop the globe. Okay? His arms are constantly tired. They're tired all day, every day. But he cannot drop the world. And that's how a lot of men feel. Because when they go home, they already out in the world doing all these battles and doing all these fights and whatever have you and trying to get this bread, insert here, but then go home and then have another fight and battle when he's trying to express to you and decompress to you, or use you as a level of decompression so that he can come back to his sanity, bounce back, okay, put his boxing gloves back on and get back out in the world and do it again. A man's vulnerability is his vulnerability. And you hit it right on the head where it gets weaponized.
And then the thing about it is the fact that we don't just get weaponized in the house. We get weaponized all day long.
Yep.
That if I'm having a breakdown, I'm having a moment to where I'm upset, I'm looked at crazy at work. It's like, do you know how many times I have to walk out and I have to wear the stigma of, because I'm the 6 foot plus black dude, that I feel obligated to go outside and smile all the time, that I can't wear my feelings on my chest because all it takes is somebody to read my emotions the wrong way. and before you know it, there'll be a police intervention.
Yeah, yeah,
And
because of where you at, and the type of environment that you possibly may be in, and if you got a certain look on your face, a lot of women like to call it resting B face. You know, a lot of guys got resting man face. We do, but because you look that way, you're an angry black man.
I mean, it's like I tell people all the time, I don't believe in stereotyping and just assuming things, but there are certain realities that you just can't escape. And one of the things is the fact that what's been drilled into our heads all the time is the fact that, and again, it's not necessarily that somebody raised me to see it. There's many times I get out of the grocery store at the same time as somebody else, and then you just witness how fast somebody is jumbling for their keys to lock their door, and it's just like maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just assuming that, or maybe it's the fact that what you have been taught is that this is how fast the carjacking takes place, so you feel like you're trying to keep yourself extra safe, and it's like, or maybe I'm just my mind is playing tricks on me. Maybe I've allowed myself to believe and buy into the stigma, but it's like it happens so often. Like there's been times like there's this one thing that I see a lot of people do, and this is just something. And again, it's like if there's any white people out here, if y'all can explain this to me, because it's something that it perplexes me to my core. That when I walk into a store, I cross paths with certain people at certain times. Rather than saying hello or just speaking back or something like that, just exchanging formalities. You do this and just keep walking. What is that? Why do you do that? It
I see
makes
it all the time,
people
bro.
like me who it makes people like me who actually want to put my best foot forward. It makes me feel like an asshole. Maybe you feel like you think less of me when you do that. And maybe somebody can explain what that is, but I only get that response from white people. Hey, how you doing? And keep walking. Keep walking. Don't speak. Don't wave. And again, it's like it puts you in a place where it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna stop waving. I'm just gonna stop saying hello. I'm gonna stop projecting myself as the non-aggressive dude to try to appease the imagination of somebody else.
Yeah,
But it's like you deal with so many different demons that you don't know if you're being looked at incorrectly. You don't know if you don't know where when you hop out of a car, when you are walking down the street, you have no idea. And it's like there's so much societal pressure to make you believe that everywhere that you go that you're a victim, that even if you don't want to believe it, it's hard. It's hard. And I don't know how to turn it off. And I don't know if it's ever intended to turn off, but the same toxic Kool-Aid that I was fed to believe that that's how white people and other groups of people feel about me. Well, guess what? That's the exact same Kool-Aid that they were fed to when it was told that I could potentially be a predator. All right, let me get into these comments. Say when I do good deeds, nobody remembers, but when I do bad things, nobody forgets. I think that that's just part of the balance. It's like you have to understand that Will Smith has led like a squeaky clean lifestyle for like 30 years. He blew up on the Grammys, and all of a sudden it's like they want to take everything away from him and strip him of things and do we want to do the ultimate damage to you for not keeping a squeaky clean, perfect image. Like the man gave you no curse raps. He gave you Fresh Prince of Bel Air. He gave you Wild Wild West. He gave you every single clean, wholesome thing you possibly could. But the one time that he showed he was human, he was punished for it. Now, do I agree with what he did? Absolutely not. I felt like the action was deplorable. You are Will freaking Smith. You could have just got up. They would have allotted you a slot on the stage to just get up there and say, "Hey man, that was funny, whatever," but knock it off. No more jokes. The whole crowd would have applauded you. You would have looked like the hero. He could have went sat back down in a non-violent way. But we don't know what Will Smith, the man, is dealing with. And that's what I mean about the suffering in silence, is that that's not a response that a sane, functional man makes. That is a trauma response. That is a trauma. You don't just get up and do things like that just to be doing them or just to prove a point. That is a response to something that has been building over and over again. And Chris Rock was just the target that day. And this is what I mean by suffering in silence, is the fact that as he's trying to have a good time, he's looking over at his wife. And it's clear that whatever they talk about behind closed doors ate at him at that point, because he's thinking about the conversation they're going to have after the fact, that he feels obligated to respond in the most aggressive way possible to try to redeem his masculinity. But
I'm
that's
pondering.
that's literally an example of what suffering in silence can do to you. So when you sit here and you look at a bunch of these hyper masculine men that walk around and feel like they have to prove how tough they are, every altercation, every verbal conversation that goes a little left, they want to invite you to the fight. Hey man, we can just go ahead and box. We could do this. We could. Like, they literally have to take everything, every little thing, to the extreme.
Yeah.
I do believe that a lot of that is due to the part that they never learned in the household how to articulate their feelings verbally. They've never seen healthy verbal exchange. So going to the umpteenth degree is the only way to redeem their masculinity. And I'll say this too. The only people who I know that are super aggressive and always want to challenge you to a fight that I know of were picked on when they were younger. I don't know any super overly aggressive men that were not picked on when they were younger.
Yeah, I don't either. You're right.
Every time I hear
And
one of
we're
these
not
guys,
saying that's law. That's just a perspective.
I'm just saying that that's my experience. When I look at people who have been close to me, when I look at people who have been in my inner circle in any response, I mean, it will have been in a circle or been around me. When they tell
Mm.
their story, the story always includes, yeah, when I was coming up, I did this, this, and this, and then I got into martial arts, or I got into this, and I got into this, or I took up boxing, I did this, third. And as they became older, they became hyper aggressive, whereas they were hyper sensitive back in the day. So they've just became the reverse of the totem pole, to where it's like, now that I have some self-confidence because I have a set of skills that I can use to hurt you, I get more pleasure out of responding to my trauma, because every time that somebody says something to me, it triggers a piece of old trauma. It triggers when I felt like my dad or my stepdad was being overly aggressive with me. It triggers when I watched my mom get beat up. It triggers when such and such happened. I couldn't defend myself. It triggers when I got jumped by that group of kids at school. Every aspect of something triggers a response. And as soon as I see it, I tell myself I will never be a victim again. So every opportunity, I will be the aggressor.
But that's like always being in a steady state of fight or flight, and it's always fight mode.
Mm. Really, it's flight mode, because I'm trying to get aggressive with you to prevent the need to fight. Because if I think about it, when you think about these highly aggressive people that are always there, what are they hoping for? They're hoping you back down, because they don't really want to fight you.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't really want to fight you, because they really want to fight you. They just take off on you. A good threat. Back in the day, my mom used to have this saying that a good threat is worth 1,000 ass whoopings. So as long
Yeah.
as it's looming in the back of your head what could happen, it prevents the need for anything to actually happen.
Hmm. Yeah.
Let me get back into these comments. Say
That's
Trump
deep.
being a Puerto
I
Rican
wish I had
5'11",
wish I had a
207.
bomb for that.
You said what?
I wish I had a bomb for that. That was a gem right there.
Say Trump being a Puerto Rican 5'11", 207 tattoo with foul mouth and a freeze. Let me tell you something. There are certain things that people have to understand that comes along with the territory of living. Is that race, nationality, all these things, they are a spectrum. And because they are a spectrum, what comes along with those spectrums that I don't know a single group that does not have a stereotype. Every Asian don't know martial arts. Every Irishman is not a drunk. Every Scotsman don't sit around cursing at everybody. Every
Yeah.
Jamaican don't smoke weed or have dreads.
Every
Every
Jew is
black
not a
man
lawyer
don't. Every black man haven't been incarcerated and haven't and don't take care of their kids.
and
Every
don't
black
rap.
woman, every black woman don't wear weave and obnoxious and talk down, talk crazy, call herself a queen. You know what I'm saying? It's like no matter what the stigma is that's associated with anybody's group, the group dynamic does not agree or disagree with people's feelings about it. So what happens is that a lot of what happens is that when you see people have these stereotypes, one of the worst things that I've ever seen is people who feel the need to play into those stereotypes. That because you are a black man, you have to be cool. Because you are a black man, you have to be a certain way. You have to listen to certain type of music. You have to be up on certain types of trends. That women that are closed to me, a corny guy from another race could get that same woman and be seen as interesting. But in my own culture, she sees me as lame and uninteresting.
That's another show. I like that topic.
I mean, it's like there's a lot of trauma responses, and there's a lot of things to where it's like the people say, oh, it is ingrown hate and stuff between it. Like, dude, as a fellow Rican, like, understand something. Because I have a phenotype of a black man, there are people who disregard or discredit me as who I am. There are people who in just in the island of Puerto Rico is like you have your own issues. There are some issues that are specifically island related. It's just like calling a Japanese person Chinese and vice versa. Like calling a Mexican a Puerto Rican. It's like calling a Haitian a Jamaican. It's like, who the hell cares? But then again, it's like you call an Indian Pakistani. You call a Pakistani, a man from Pakistan, calling them Bangladesh or anything. Like, if you don't know the history, it makes perfect sense why these things are so offensive. But they're offensive because people are holding on to old legacy stuff that has nothing to do with them. And it's absolutely deplorable. Is absolutely deplorable. You have black people and white people who hate each other over steak that has nothing to do with them. Right here in this very soil. That they walk out and they assume when they run into each other. And again, it's like there are a lot of us as men especially that we all have our own traumas. We all have our own things. Like for white men specifically, almost everything you see on social media is painting white men as horrible people. It's painting them as these tyrants, as these colonizers, as these overseers. When if you learn the history, the vast majority of the white people were no better than the black slave at one point in time. When you sit back and you look at the actual history of a lot of these people, the poor Germans, the poor Irishmen, even the Jew at one point in time coming over here to the United States, they had signs that said no blacks, no Irish. He couldn't come in. How you couldn't come into the same place I couldn't come into. There wasn't any signs saying, hey, no Puerto Ricans, because there wasn't any here. There were no Cubans here. So a lot of times we fail to realize that a lot of what we believe and a lot of what we think is associated with traumas that have been instilled in us that really have nothing to do with us. The word multicultural is seen in certain communities as a scapegoat to prevent certain groups from getting what belongs to them. And in some respects, I agree with that. But in most respects, I don't.
That's a gem that's gonna go over a lot of people here, but they're not gonna understand it.
I
Only a
mean,
few is gonna understand it.
I mean, you know, like it is. I can't care about that. I have to call things as if they are what they are, and be able to back it up when I get put on trial for it. But as far as concerned, like I tell people all the time, is like one of the first traumatic instances that I had was being removed from my mom's custody. You know, there's nothing worse than being 9, 10 years old and you have a caseworker coming to sit down and interview you and have conversations with you about what's going on in your house. You don't know why. You don't know who this person. You don't know what a caseworker is. So imagine having somebody with a folder, with a manila folder, sitting in front of you, ask you questions about how's your day, how was this, did you eat today, did you like? I don't know why you asking me these questions. Like, who is this lady? Why is she here? And then when you 12, you get taken completely out of the house. You don't know or understand why this is happening. And then the goal is that you're going to be placed in somebody else's house or in a group home dynamic to where ultimately the goal is that somehow you're going to turn out to be a functional member of society. That somehow that when people are telling you, oh well, you're in a guidance counselor's office and the guidance counselor is communicating with your caseworker that you don't know that they talk to each other, and people are looking at you saying, oh well, we think that your anger issues are due to this and this, we want to prescribe you a medication. Like, man, forget your medication, man, I'm not taking that. Like, y'all act like y'all don't know what my problem is. Like, everybody is thinking for me but nobody's talking to me. Why am I here? So even at 37 years old, I can tell people a lot of the times, like, you still deal with the abandonment issues. You still go down these dark paths that when you sit here and you look at your own children, sometimes you look in the same moment that you have so much joy for what you've done, you turn around and you have a bipolar moment to where it's like you feel like a complete failure because you don't know, you feel like you could have did more. I should have done more. It should have been more. And a lot of us are dealing with a lot of pent up trauma. It's like my experience is my experience. But what about yours, Midas? There's nobody to devalue what you experienced, whether you experienced the same thing that I did. Nobody can take that from you.
Right.
What about the women that you thought that loved you, that mistreated you, that took from you, that did certain things to you, that manipulated and caused all these issues? What about the things that your parents weren't able to teach you that when you got out into the world and sat back and said, like, man, like I'm so far behind where I thought that I was ahead. That with this group of guys that I've been around all my life, I'm far ahead of them. But when I get out into the real world, I'm so far behind from them.
Yeah.
Who's to say that
It's a rude awakening.
Yeah.
for sure.
Say they get offended instead of teaching. I've been asked if I'm a citizen or have a green card. Instead of me getting offended, I take a few minutes to teach them. You know, it was a funny joke that I saw, and somebody asked a Puerto Rican on the street, said, "Hey, what did you do to get over here? Like, how'd you get over here?" And he responded back and said, "JetBlue." It's like, are you that like you don't know Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory? But it's like you are so American that you completely discredit the fact that Guam, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, like they just don't exist. They're just not here, right? There's just whatever. So if I say something offending to you, believe it's better for you to teach them the reason of why it's offensive. You know, I agree with that to a certain point, but also say
Yeah,
that in 2023, when you walking around with one of these and you can get the answer to any question that you want in 7 seconds, at some point in time you have to take some self accountability. Your ignorance is solely because of the fact that you chose not to research. Even in research, me asking somebody a question about who they are, what they are, where they are, rather than assuming, I find it to
yeah.
be
I
quite
like earlier about it too.
fact.
I like what you said earlier too. Uh, you know what I'm saying? It makes you a cyborg. You have 24/7 access to Google and any other research engine. So there should be no reason why we're using words like feel when we should be using words. Hold on, let me check that. Hold on, let me look into that. Hold on, let me research that. Hold on, let me find some references. Like those should be terms we should be using.
I can tell you this much, that when you look at certain situations, you have to take into consideration a couple of very key factors. One key factor that I would say is that when you are dealing with men, you cannot devalue a man's story. What he's going through, what he's dealing with, what he has dealt with, what he has overcome, that is a byproduct of who you have in front of you today. So to not respect a man's story, what you do ultimately is you put yourself into a position to where you are assuming and letting the stereotype about what manhood and masculinity is supposed to be. You're letting that rule your life and you're letting that govern how you see people. So you create a monolith out of this thing to where you take an archetypical figure of any kind and now you implant that person as your view of what a man is supposed to be. And anybody who does not fit the description of what that man is supposed to be, you automatically deem as inferior. And that to me, I find to be odd. I find it to be objectively odd. What are your thoughts on that?
Same. I think that everybody should be able to express, be given an opportunity to show who they are, show what type of man they are, uh, be able to show what type of intellect he has, what skill sets he has. But to have this, I guess you can call it a template, and because he went out of lines a little bit of your template, you know, he's unworthy. I think that's kind of foul because that takes, you know, really getting to know this person for real. Or devaluing, I guess, his status or his manhood. It's just
Well,
all around the board, you know. Go ahead.
well, I mean, a man having his own individual take and his own individual position on how he feels that he should be representing himself. There are some things that we grow from over said period of time, and then there are other things that I will say that is directly linked into our individual identity. And when you take a person's individuality from them and you try to convince them that there's something problematic with their individuality, what you do is you actually do a great detriment to society. Let me tell you how. You try to create a bunch of men that only fit into a certain category or a certain box. And in doing so, a lot of men are trying on running shoes that are not their size. What does it do? It creates resentment for the opposite sex. It creates resentment in a lot of areas, but more so, it creates self loathing because you always walk around feeling a sense of inadequacy because you're not Andrew Tate, because you're not David Goggins, because you're not these archetypical super alpha dudes. So because of the fact that you do not fit into this box of what I guess it's thought that women are buying into, immediately you feel less than because I'm not in the income bracket that I would like to be in. Hold on, say I do. That's why my comments are so late. I have to Google search some words. Wife not here to help me with the language. I mean, but that's part of it.
I appreciate that.
That, that's part of it. But see, and with that, you understand that work needs to be done because in order for you to acquire whatever result that you're looking for, you are willing to do the work. You could easily just not do it. You could easily butcher it. You could easily just force other people to excuse you because you don't want to do the work you feel that we should. Oh, you guys should try to figure out what I'm trying to say.
Or just
And
spew a bunch of jargon and package it up to try to make it sound good
oh,
based off the feeling.
of course, and that happens often. That happens far too often. To where it's like we are living in a society now to where we have people who feel that they don't have to they don't have to perform, they don't have to provide anything. And in doing so, or in not doing so, rather, what they've ultimately ended up doing is saying, this is why I've capped off, take it or leave it. This is it. This is all you're gonna get from me. So in essence,
That's
Midas.
that's that video. That's that video. What you see is what you get. I put out.
Mm-hmm. So Midas, I want to ask you a question. I'm gonna go ahead and let you get some of this flow because this floor is tasty. There's ribs on this floor. You got to put some sauce on them. So I want you to talk about an instance to where you've seen somebody in a position to where they've been suffering in silence. You didn't know. And when you found out the depth of it, like what was your response or what was your thoughts on the matter?
So I definitely you know an individual where every time you talk to him, everything is peaches and cream. You know, you go over to the crib, everything look copacetic. You know, but it really seemed just a little bit too odd. You know, of I noticed small little tidbit things happening, like you know what I'm saying, like you know the wife is in her own room. You know, you got your own like. There's a difference between having a man cave and then like this way you act. You know what I'm saying in the crib. So I got to, asking questions, not trying to probe too deep, but, I'm very observant. I see it, so I asked him. And, it finally came out, what I'm saying? Like he's putting on these fake smiles and, the wife is, doing this, doing that. And, he don't know how to handle it. He got babies. So it's not like it's an easy situation to walk away from. And, just listening to the story and listening to, the holding back of the tears and everything, it really did something to me. And I honestly really didn't know how to respond. I've never been in that situation. The only thing I could do is just let them know, what I'm saying, I'm your man, so I got you, what I'm saying, whatever you need. But it's situations like that is more common than you think. It's pretty much become the norm amongst a lot of men in their situations. And that's why I'm thankful for this Extraordinary Men podcast, because it does give men an opportunity. And there's been a lot of reaching out from a lot of individuals, saying to me, asking about certain situations and relationships and, finances, stuff like that. But, I honestly really didn't know how to respond in that particular situation. But I think about it all the time because it could be me. And if I was in that situation, I think about what would I do? How can I respond to that? And I'm not going to, of course, divulge details, but it was rough, man. It was rough to hear that story and to sit there and have to sip that beer and listen to that.
I mean, it's rough. I mean, like I tell people, it's like I try to be as transparent as humanly possible, and in doing so, it's like I could be the first person to tell you that many of us are in not so ideal situations,
Yeah.
and we have our own demons. We have our own situations that plaguing and eating at us every single day, and we don't necessarily know how to handle them. We don't even know sometimes if it's even something that we should be handling. A lot of guys, they take trauma on as if this just must be part of my story. We normalize it, we create it, and we embed it into our day to day. That, you know what, I'm really unhappy, but I guess being unhappy, I guess this is part of it.
And it's like we try our best to be problem solvers and we try to be fixers and try to do it all and be Atlas, hold the world up. And we take on not only dealing with our own traumas, but try to take on other people's traumas to see if we can try to.
Okay, that was awkward. Midas, you there? There you go. Can you hear me? All right, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. That was spooky, bro.
Hold
So
on.
you to know, like that was super spooky.
I can't hear you though.
That's because you're not trying hard enough. I hear you perfectly. And you guys, do y'all hear him? Okay, so needless to say, it looks like we have a tad bit of technical difficulties. Hold on one second. Let's get him back in there.
Let's go.
Are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, there we go. Okay.
No, but what I was saying is that, because we're built to problem solve and try to be fixers, that not only do we try to deal with our own trauma, but take on other individuals that we love and care about and got this bond with and everything, that we take on their traumas too. in an effort to try to be a resolver, a fixer, an eliminator of problems. And it gets hard, it gets heavy, and it's the zero. It's a continuous Xerox theory, over and over and over again.
Heavy is the head who wears the crown. Say you lending an ear, I bet helped him a lot. You'll be surprised how many people are literally on the brink of harming themselves or drinking themselves into a stupor or drug abuse, everything because they really don't feel like they have somebody they can call, they can trust. There are a lot of guys who literally have contemplated suicide that have never talked about it. And the suicide statistics say that more men on average commit suicide than women. That's because a lot of us, we are suffering deep.
Yeah.
And one of the worst parts about it is, one thing I want people to get out of the habit of doing is that if somebody calls you and tell you that they're having a problem, don't tell them to man up.
Yeah.
Don't tell them that. Listen to them. Hear them out. Let them sufficiently get it off of them and offer them encouragement, and then follow it up with what do you intend on doing about solving the problem.
And that's crazy that you said that, Jose, about you lending an ear. I bet helped them a lot. What I have come to realize over time is that just being an ear is the fix. You don't have to go with a deep thought about it. You ain't got to grab your tool bag. You ain't got to grab pen and paper. You ain't got to draw up no Tom and Jerry's full-blown schematic plan to make a trap. You ain't got to do none of that. Just be an ear. And it took me a little bit to learn that. That goes a long way.
I mean, in essence, that's like is one of the most powerful things in the world is just your presence, your availability. And that's one of the things that I tell everybody specifically is that there was a meme that I had shared once before, and it's like I thought it was one of the most impactful things that I ever shared is the fact that I'd rather hear your story than attend your funeral.
Yep.
Pick up the phone, text, call, Facebook inbox, lay it on me. If me hearing you speak about your situation versus you harming yourself or you doing something that you know that you shouldn't do, hit me up. I can be pissed off with the world. I would stop everything under the sun. I'll leave work. I'll do whatever is necessary to ensure that you are safe.
You mean me that hit the dead zone? Because I probably did. I'm all the way out here. You know you way out when you passing a windmill farm. You way out there.
I just seen a sign that you passed that said far, far away. I thought I saw Shrek in the car next to you.
See, I had to pop another coffee. I got another hour and a half drive.
That ain't real coffee. That's water and sugar with food coloring. You gotta get you a man's coffee. Hot.
I'm not at home.
That ain't the point. There's a Dunkin'.
And wifey makes the dopest coffee. And she learned how to do the thing where you pour it in the coffee cup and make the leaf. She learned how to do that shit, dog. My bad. She learned how to do that stuff. And
All right, guys. It's the moment you've all been waiting for. We got a special announcement. He's like, put your hand on the steering wheel. It's the moment you all been waiting for. We got a special announcement. And because of the fact that I am the host of the Extraordinary Man podcast, I was slated to be able to give this special announcement out. We are going to stop doing live shows for a while. Reason being is because we both have transitions in business and in personal that is going to occupy a great deal of our time. So what we're going to start doing is we're going to start pre-recording our shows and then putting them out. So you guys will still be able to catch us. It'll still be released at the same time. It just will be temporarily. You guys will not be doing the interaction with us, but you'll still be able to see the shows as normal. Same platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and so forth. So we're going to start doing that effective next week. Tomorrow's show is still on for Saturday morning. You good for Saturday morning? Okay. But effective Tuesday. That's it. We're done. And then we're going to
Yep.
start going with pre-recorded shows. So we're just encouraging you guys, if you have not subscribed, to subscribe. Make sure that you guys get access to the content directly. As you guys know, shameless plug. I'm going to go ahead and throw up the QR link so that you guys can subscribe to the channel if you have not at this time. Right there, we have the subscribe button here. Where? Here on the screen.
No.
Just use your smartphone, QR code it. You guys can hit the subscribe button at your leisure. Make sure that you guys subscribe. Make sure you leave comments. Chat with us as often as humanly possible. Also hit the bell so that you can get all the notifications to know when the shows are going to be released. They're going to be timed. You guys are going to get them on time every week. So 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock p.m. And Saturday morning is going to be the same as always. We're not going to take you away from the times. We just won't be as present as we were. Got anything you want to add on that?
Also, make sure, again, that you hit us up on the Facebook group, because that's where you can connect with us directly. Really appreciate if you guys can tap in. A lot more you guys have been chiming in and making posts and commenting on posts that's been posted in there. So thank you for that. But yeah, let's try to get that Facebook jumping. And again, I mean, what better than being able to talk to us directly? So tap in, chime in.
All right. You guys know what to do. Make sure you guys tune in, chime in. Let's build it up. Let's have the conversations. And he got an hour and a half ride to go, so I'm going to let him rock out with his music. And I got to go to the job tonight. So,
Real quick.
Go ahead.
Just want to add, you know, and I said it already early in the show, but I feel that it's very important that we need to get around to the point of normalizing men being able to express themselves. We have feelings too, okay? We're not mindless drones. We're not tools. We're not wallets, okay? We're humans too, okay? We have feelings too, all right? And I want to make sure that if a man is trying to open himself up, if you can understand that he's trying to be vulnerable, don't use it as a weapon against him, but you know what I'm saying, try to get an understanding of listening to that man and try to help that man, you know what I'm saying, de-stress. Don't ridicule, don't chastise. Like Mike said, man up, you know what I'm saying, because you don't know exactly what is going on in that man's head. And that man coming to you at that moment, what you don't know is you probably the last person that he gonna attempt to talk to try to come down off that ledge.
And for most of us to get to a point where we're actually able to talk about it, we have to be down to our last option.
Yeah.
For most of us, we try to solve all the problems ourselves. We try to solve all the problems ourselves as much as humanly possible. It does not work all the time. But for us to actually come and have a conversation with you, A, we have to trust you. B, we have to feel comfortable with your judgment and your ability to provide positive feedback. And 3, and most importantly, got to trust you. So the second you use that and turn it around as a weapon against us, all that goes out the window. And it's hard to get that back.
Yeah. That door got so many locks on it. It's gonna take a while to get that thing unlocked.
Speaking of locked doors, no, let me stop. Anyway, guys, that's our time tonight. Appreciate y'all. Make sure you guys are checking in with us tomorrow with the Extraordinary Man podcast, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard, 10 a.m. Central Time, and all subsequent time zones shall follow suit. Please make sure you guys are tuning in. Tomorrow we're going to have a nice, chill, relaxed, but spicy one for you. Gonna put some sauce on those ribs right out the gate.
So tomorrow is Dad's birthday. So it's mine and Jones' dad's birthday. All right. So make sure you send birthday loves. You know what I'm saying? You can post it in the Facebook group to our father. That'll be, you know what I'm saying, very appreciative. We're taking them fishing. So I will be on the water in the boat. I should still have service tomorrow, so I can be on the show. But I just want to give that warning. I'm going to be on the water, but I should have service.
If nothing else, we're going to make sure that we go and give a grand birthday to Dad.
Yeah.
All right, Shane.
All right.
Well, that's our time, guys. Peace.
I'm finished drinking my sugar water.
Shout out to that.